She laughed in a group call with her friends and said, "He's not ugly, he's just forgettable. If I left, he'd probably write me a poem instead of getting angry." They roared with laughter. I was logged into her iPad. I didn't write a poem, just a note that said, "You're easy to forget too. She's called me 62 times. I never considered myself a particularly memorable man. At 52, I'm successful but understated. Built a construction company from nothing into something solid. Drive a 5-year-old Silverado because it works fine. Own a house with a view because I earned it, not because I need to show it off. I've been called steady, reliable, dependable, never exciting, or unforgettable. Rebecca and I had been together for 3 years. She was 47, divorced twice, worked in pharmaceutical sales. We met at a business mixer. She approached me, actually. Said she liked how I stood apart from the peacocks trying to impress everyone. That was our beginning. The relationship was good, not perfect, none are, but good. We didn't live together, kept our own places. She stayed at mine 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. We traveled, made plans, talked about marriage eventually, once her youngest finished college next year. I'm not naive. At my age, you've seen enough to know that what people show you isn't always what they are. But I thought we had something real. Mutual respect, if nothing else. Tuesday night, Rebecca was staying at my place while I finished a big project estimate in my home office. She was downstairs on a video call with her friends, her wine club, they called themselves. 5 divorced women who'd known each other since college. They did these calls twice monthly, catching up, sharing stories, drinking wine. I don't eavesdrop as a rule. Never have. But this night, I needed to check some measurements on a blueprint I'd left on my iPad. Rebecca had been using it earlier to stream a movie. She preferred my iPad Pro to her basic model. I opened my office door to head downstairs when I heard my name through the half-open bedroom door. "So are you and Jack still talking about that move to the coast?" One of her friends, Marianne, I think. Rebecca laughed, that specific laugh she had when she was 3 glasses in and feeling superior. "God, could you imagine? Spending my golden years in some quiet beach town with Jack?" Someone else asked. "What's wrong with Jack? I thought you said he was solid?" "Solid, yes. Exciting? No." Rebecca's voice shifted to that performative tone she used when holding court. "He's not ugly, he's just forgettable. If I left, he'd probably write me a poem instead of getting angry." They roared with laughter. Not gentle laughter, the kind that cuts. "At least he's loaded," another voice chimed in. "That's the only reason I'm still around," Rebecca said. "Well, that and he's good for fixing things. But come on, remember when we went to Cabo? Remember those guys at the resort bar? That's excitement. Jack's just reliable." More laughter. "So what's your exit strategy?" someone asked. "No rush," Rebecca replied. "The market's down. His investment portfolio took a hit last quarter. I'll wait till things recover, then maybe manufacture some drama. He'll either propose to keep me, which means half his assets eventually, or he'll do his sad, dignified exit. Either way, I win." I stood there, iPad forgotten in my hand, blood rushing in my ears. 3 years, vacations, meeting her children, planning a future. And I was just an ATM with a toolbox to her. I've been angry many times in my life. When my first business failed, when my brother died too young, when clients tried to cheat me. But this wasn't anger, this was clarity. Quietly, I went back to my office and closed the door. I pulled up the iPad, still logged into my Apple ID, which Rebecca had used to download movies, but she had logged into her own accounts, email, social media, banking app, all accessible. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not ashamed either. I spent the next hour looking through her digital life. The Cabo trip she mentioned happened 6 months ago when she told me she was at a sales conference in Phoenix. Credit card statements showed room charges for 2 at an oceanfront resort. Photos she'd never shared with me showed her with a man I didn't recognize. There were others. Weekend girls' trips that weren't. Text messages with her friends about various men. Mockery of things I'd said or done. Financial discussions of my worth. Literal spreadsheets estimating my net worth and projected earnings. All while I thought we were building something. I didn't slam doors. Didn't break things. Didn't even raise my voice. Men my age have learned that true power lies in control. Not of others, but of yourself. I waited until her call ended, heard her pour another glass of wine. Then I walked downstairs, iPad in hand. "Good call?" I asked. Just the usual, she said, smiling. The girl's being dramatic, nothing interesting. I nodded. I need to check something in the garage. Would you grab my reading glasses from upstairs? When she went up, I took the suitcase she'd brought for the 3-night stay and placed it by the front door. I wrote a note on a piece of paper from my desk. Simple, direct. You're easy to forget too. I left it on the kitchen counter beside her wine glass, then went to the garage and shut the door. 20 minutes later, I heard her call my name, then again, louder, then the sound of her reading the note. The garage has a separate exit. I took it, got in my truck, and drove to the 24-hour diner where I drafted my first business plan 20 years ago. Ordered coffee. Black. Turned off my phone. The next morning, I drove to my office and called a locksmith to change the house keys. Called my attorney to review Rebecca's access to any of my accounts or property. Called my assistant to clear my schedule for the day. Then I turned my phone back on. 62 missed calls, 38 voice messages, 53 texts. They evolved as you might expect. Confusion, anger, accusations, threats, bargaining, tears, repeat. What the hell is this? Call me back. You can't just throw away 3 years over nothing. I'm calling a lawyer. You can't just put my things outside. Please, Jack, it was just stupid wine talk. I'm sorry. Please call me. I didn't mean any of it. I love you. We can fix this. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I made arrangements to have her remaining belongings packed and delivered to her house. I sent a single email detailing when the delivery would arrive and that any further communication should go through my attorney. The weekend after I left Rebecca, I drove up to my cabin in the mountains. It's nothing fancy, 3 rooms and a deck overlooking the valley. I bought it 15 years ago as a refuge from the world. Rebecca had been there exactly twice. Both times she complained about the spotty cell service and lack of proper amenities. She'd opted out of subsequent invitations. Now I sat on that deck with a glass of bourbon, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. My phone was off. The only sounds were wind through the pines and an occasional eagle's cry. I thought I'd feel devastated, betrayed, broken. Instead, I felt unnervingly calm. I spent 3 days there, split firewood, hiked old trails, slept better than I had in months. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were another 40-some calls and over 60 texts. I deleted them all without reading. Back in the city, I threw myself into work. We were bidding on a major hospital renovation, the kind of project that could expand our business significantly. I worked 14-hour days, focusing on details, refining estimates, meeting with potential subcontractors. My employees noticed the intensity, but knew better than to ask questions. 2 weeks passed. The calls continued, but grew less frequent. She showed up at my office once, but security didn't let her past the lobby. She sent mutual friends who suddenly remembered my existence. The only response I gave anyone, "It didn't work out, I wish her well." A month later, my business partner Frank finally cornered me after a meeting. "You've got to talk about it, Jack. You can't just shut down." I looked at him. My friend of 30 years who'd seen me through a divorce, business failures, rebuilding, everything. "I'm not shut down. I'm moving on. She's telling people you had some kind of breakdown, overreacted to a joke, making you sound unstable." I shrugged. People who matter know better. "So what really happened?" I showed him screenshots I'd taken that night. The trip receipts, the messages about me, the financial calculations. He read in silence, then looked up. "Jesus, Jack. Some lessons come later in life than we'd like," I said. We landed the hospital contract, the largest in our company's history. The work consumed me in the best possible way, complex problems with concrete solutions. My kind of challenge. Rebecca tried a new approach. She sent a letter to my home address, 10 pages handwritten. I recognized the expensive stationery she preferred. I returned it unopened, with address unknown written across the envelope. Another month passed. My phone still rang occasionally with her number, but I'd forgotten what the ringtone for her calls even sounded like. I accepted a project on the coast, that beach town I'd talked about. Bought a small property there as an investment. One evening, as I was leaving a restaurant alone, I heard her voice calling my name in the parking lot. I kept walking to my truck. "Jack, please," she said, closer now. "Can we just talk, like adults?" I turned. She looked smaller somehow, less certain. 3 years, Jack. Doesn't that deserve at least a conversation? I studied her face. Once I'd found it beautiful. Now I just felt nothing. The person I thought you were deserved a conversation, I said quietly. The person you actually are doesn't. It was just talk. Stupid wine talk? Don't you ever say things you don't mean? Not about someone I claim to love. She stepped closer. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Calculating someone's financial worth while planning to leave them is a character revelation. Tears formed in her eyes. What can I do to fix this? I reached for my keys. Nothing. That's the point. So you're just gonna throw away 3 years? Pretend they never happened? Pretend I never mattered? I opened my truck door. You know what's funny, Rebecca? I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even hurt. You were right about one thing that night. I am forgettable to you. The difference is, I've realized you're forgettable to me too. I got in my truck and drove away. Didn't look in the rearview mirror. That was 6 months ago. I've since expanded the business to that coastal town, bought a house overlooking the water, have dinner once a week with a retired architect who's designing my next project. She's intelligent, independent, and genuine. We're taking things slowly. Rebecca still calls occasionally. The number shows up on my screen, but I couldn't tell you what the ringtone sounds like. I've forgotten it, just like I've forgotten the sound of her laughter or the feeling of betrayal. Some people think getting older means accepting less, settling for what you can get. I've learned it actually means demanding more authenticity, more respect, more truth. I don't need to be unforgettable to everyone, just to the right someone. And they to me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making a big scene or destroying someone's life. Sometimes it's simply proving them wrong in the quietest way possible, then moving on to build something better. That note, "You're easy to forget too," wasn't just a comeback line. It was a promise to myself, and promises are something I never forget.